I didn't want to hear it first. I want to know, how did it begin for you? How did you all of a sudden awaken to this reality?
Nobody wants to hear it at first, do they? It sounds like the most ridiculous thing, and we've kind of been programmed to think that. The idea of a flat earther has been ridiculed for so long that it's programmed into us that that's a ridiculous notion that we should pass right by. But I personally first started looking into it in my 20s, having never fully bought the globe model. When it was presented to us in school, I remember thinking, wouldn't we fall off the bottom of that spinning ball? Wouldn't the water go over the edges? And of course, the teacher presents you with gravity, the ball earth explanation for everything they can't get around. And gravity is this force that pulls everything towards the center of large masses, they say. So as a result, we're stuck to the ball, the buildings are stuck to the ball, the oceans are stuck to the ball, and that's the explanation you get in school. So I went along to get along, but always had a nagging doubt in the back of my mind, and I started coming across information on geocentrism, which is that the Earth is the center of the universe and everything revolves around the Earth. We've been taught the heliocentric model in school, where the sun is the center and everything revolves around the sun. That was actually updated to what I call the acentric model, actually, because they say now that even the sun isn't the center, because the sun is only the center of a solar system, and the solar system itself is revolving around the galaxy, and the galaxy is revolving around the universe. So there's many supposed motions that they claim the Earth and the solar system and the galaxy are going under. So once I started researching geocentrism, I started finding proofs for the fact that Earth is stationary, and so couldn't possibly be the heliocentric model. And then as you get more and more into that, you find that not only is the Earth stationary, but the supposed curvature that they claim exists, 25,000 miles in circumference, they claim the ball Earth is. So there should be a noted curvature of 8 inches per mile squared, going by the Pythagorean theorem and spherical trigonometry. That's the curvature that should be present on a globe 25,000 miles in circumference, as we've been told. But you just can't measure it anywhere. So there's been experiments taken for hundreds of years trying to find this curvature, and it's just nowhere to be found. The Earth's flat as far as the eye can see. So I started reading some of these old flat Earth books from the 19th century by authors like Samuel Rowbotham, William Carpenter, Lady Blunt, Gerard Hickson, Thomas Winship, and some others. These are the old flat earthers back in the 1800s. And I was quite surprised to see that they had plenty of proofs and evidence for their model, the flat earth model. And over time, come to become a flat earther myself. So now, as you said, I'm the president of the International Flat Earth Research Society, and I've written a couple books on it. So that's my awakening. It's taken quite a while. It's been over a lifetime, but like I said, I never fully bought the model, so I wasn't like one of these kind of NASA science guys that's really into what they say or whatever. Right from the get-go, I already had my questions, so that nagging doubt in my mind was always there. The blue ball model that everybody sees, the reason everybody thinks that they're on a spinning ball in the first place is because we've been shown videos and photos of a blue marble, they call it, spinning around in space. Our actual everyday perspective is of a flat, motionless plane. You never see any curvature, you never feel any motion, but we've been shown on every news program, every movie company, every channel on television basically has a logo of a spinning ball, so it's in our face all the time, and it's in every movie, so we just assume that that's what it is. But if we'd never been shown such movies, if we'd never seen a television, if we just used our eyes and our experience and our senses and done experiments for ourselves, we wouldn't ever find that we were on a spinning ball. So they want the propaganda to stay in deep. They don't want us to go independently exploring on our own, because then we'd be able to find things out. Like you said, seeing the mountain 80 miles off. That should be, the mountains should be behind almost a mile of curvature at that distance. And they should also, if you can see them at all, the peaks should be leaning backwards away from you. This doesn't happen. Clouds, hot air balloons, things going away from you, they should lean away if we're on a ball. And they should also curve over with the ball. Clouds, you should see the bottom of the clouds more and more as they get closer to the horizon if they were curving over a ball. But they don't, because everything just disappears based on perspective. So like when you're looking down a long hallway, you can imagine the roof slowly goes down towards the center point. The floor slowly comes up towards the center point. The right and left walls slowly come towards the center point as well. So our vision, the perspective of our vision, the way it works, is like a pyramid shape, where the base of the pyramid is at your head, and the apex of the pyramid is at the focal point in front of you at the horizon. So this is what we're seeing when we see a horizon, when we see the clouds tending towards the horizon, or we see the ground tending up towards the horizon. This is just the way that our eyes work. And when you zoom in on the horizon, you can see things from beyond it. The ball model, they tell you that the horizon is where the curvature of the Earth begins. But if this is the case, then when you zoom in on the horizon, you should be seeing off into outer space, because the Earth starts to curve down more and more as you go. In reality, the better zoom lens you get, the more of our flat Earth you can zoom in. I just got a Nikon Coolpix P900. It's one of the best zoom cameras they've got. This thing is a flat Earth proof in itself. You just zoom in on the horizon no matter where you are, and you can take in more and more and more of the horizon. For instance, one old ball Earth proof they had was that the ships disappearing over the horizon, the hulls disappear before the mast, because that's the ship going over the curve of the Earth, they say. But now with technology, telescopes, and zoom cameras, we can have a ship completely disappear over the horizon, not just the hull, and use the zoom function to bring the entire thing, hull and all, right back into view, proving that it hasn't descended over a mass of curved water, as they tell us, but in fact, it's just gone beyond our perspective. And with the aid of technology, we can bring things right back into focus. And people will say, well, if that's the case, then I should be able to see clear across the ocean. I should be able to see all the way across the flat Earth, if that's the case. But we can, like I said, we can see much farther than you could see on a ball 25,000 miles in circumference. But that does not thereby mean that we can see an unlimited distance. Especially at the lowest, densest level of the atmosphere, another word, I call it the atmosphere flat. But you can't see far because of the air is not
particles.
transparent. Yeah, exactly. Especially at the lowest, densest layer. You can imagine the hazy, on a humid day, the haze over a road. That's the same kind of thing that's going to happen on all telescopes. They blur out like that before you could zoom in on Antarctica or something. So that's not a disproof of the flat Earth that you can't see, thousands and thousands of miles. But you can, however, see hundreds of miles sometimes, like you said. And if you can, there's reports of being able to see almost 200 miles. At that distance, there should be like 4 miles of curvature. So people have seen things that you absolutely should not be able to see on a ball 25,000 miles in circumference.
We've been taught that the closest star is 25 trillion miles away, and the light comes from 4.2 light years away from us. It has to take that much time just to reach our eyes. So we've been taught that our eyesight, especially with the aid of technology, should be able to see infinite distances. But again, you've been lied to. The stars are not that far away. You can zoom in on them with a P900 83 times zoom camera, and they are right in your face, looking like a prismatic, constantly changing disco ball of watery electricity. And that's what even the so-called planets look like. The so-called planets were always called wandering stars because they have more unique paths that they wander in the sky than the fixed stars. But when looked at through these instruments, they just look like lights in the sky. They do not at all look like spherical terra firma that you could land some masons on, as they'd like you to believe. And so when people ask you, why can't I see Everest from my balcony then? Again, perspective and the limited eyesight, even with a telescope, only allows us to see so far. The Earth is flat, but it's not completely flat. There's valleys, there's mountains, and you can only see so far before the converging skyline and the uprising ground meet on that horizon. Using a telescope zooms it in and you're able to see a bit further. But thanks to the atmosphere and just the limits of our perspective and based on your altitude, you can see a lot further. Like if you take a balloon up 20 miles is about as high as we can get an amateur balloon. You can see for hundreds of miles. Again, because of altitude and perspective, not because you're somehow seeing over the curve of the ball, because you're not. Because you can see in those high altitude videos that the horizon has risen 20 miles up to your eye level. Again, impossible on a ball, no matter how big the ball is. And it's flat, 360 degrees around. So you're not just seeing hundreds of miles now because you're seeing over the curvature of the ball. No, your perspective is now greater because you've attained a higher altitude. And if you have a telescope from that altitude, maybe you could see Mount Everest. Nobody's actually tried that experiment. But as far as, seeing the Antarctic ice wall from your balcony, no, I mean, our eyesight is limited, and you've been lied to about how far light can travel. It can't travel trillions and trillions of miles, and the stars aren't that far away anyway.
Exactly. Now, we're told satellites are real. Why are we dropping thousands of miles of fiber optic cables around the planet if satellites are real, Eric?
All right, and why are we building all these cell phone towers all over the place if we've got satellites giving us cell capabilities? Everything is done ground-based. Like you said, they've got fiber optic cables going across the oceans. They've got cell towers set up everywhere. So even GPS is just triangulated cell phone towers. Satellites are not necessary for anything that we do. You look at TV dishes, almost none of them are facing more than 45 degrees upwards because they're receiving signal from a ground-based tower. If we were actually receiving signals from these geostationary satellites hundreds of miles up, then most TV dishes should be pointing straight up all over the world.
That's true. Never thought about that. Now, why are ships in the middle of the ocean, far from land, using then if satellites are not real?
Right. Well, long before there was GPS, military had systems like LORAN and DECA, and these are ground-based navigation systems that they were using for decades, and they work just fine. So, I mean, this kind of propagation has been working long before the supposed advent of satellites, by the way, which were invented by a science fiction Freemason science fiction writer, Arthur C. Clarke. He wrote about the geostationary satellite in the science fiction novel, and then became science fact shortly thereafter. But another thing about these, they call them geostationary because they say that the Earth is spinning like 1,000 miles an hour, and up there where the satellites are, the atmosphere is stuck to the spin through gravity. So the satellites themselves are spinning at like 10,000 or 15,000 miles per hour, but they're stuck in orbit in the exact same spot relative to the Earth over which they are. Now, this is interesting because people claim that they can see satellites moving across the sky, or guys with telescopes. Really, all you can see is a light moving across the sky, but they'll say, it's a satellite. But then it's supposed to be geostationary. If satellites truly are geostationary, then they should be just a pinpoint of light that does not move ever. And you can see it day after day, night after night, year after year in the exact same spot. But that's not what people are seeing when they say, oh, there's a satellite. I mean, they may see planes, drones, or other unidentified flying objects moving across the night sky, but you're definitely not seeing a geostationary satellite moving. And like I said, there's nothing up there floating around in outer space anyway. So, if something's moving across the sky, it's flying. It's not floating. So satellites, space stations, astronauts, space travel, this is all part of the ball Earth deception, as well as the moon landing and the Mars landings. They've got us thinking that they can suspend people and metal and spaceships and rockets and everything out in the non-gravitized vacuum space, they call it out there. So they say that there's atmosphere up to a certain indeterminable point that they've never told us. And this atmosphere at beyond that point becomes non-gravitized, non-atmosphere, and you just pop out and you can float. Right? So anytime you've gone up in an airplane, a hot air balloon, a rocket, whatever, anything any of us amateurs can send up, no matter what, it goes up and inevitably comes right back down. They say that they can send stuff up high enough that it just keeps going up and doesn't come back down. And that's what they claim satellites are doing and the space station is doing. But again, we can't confirm this. Anything we've ever done comes right back down. So we have to take their word that this is possible at all. And when we look at their rockets, this is how they claim they get into outer space, is these rockets. Their rockets never go straight up. Every single rocket launch from a government space agency, you'll notice, follows a parabolic curve. It goes up, it reaches a peak right around 100,000 feet, same place any amateur rocket would reach a peak. You just can't get much higher than that. But what they do is as the rocket starts coming back down, they make sure that it goes down over the ocean, out of the way of any curious observers. And as anyone can see it coming back down to Earth, asks, hey, how come the rocket's not going up anymore? They
like
say,
a bell curve.
Yeah. Well, it's going around the curvature of the Earth, is what they tell us. So every single rocket, the reason that it follows a parabolic curve, they say, is because it's going around the curvature of the Earth. The real reason is they can't get up any higher than that. And even if they could, you think about it, a rocket needs something to push against. So if you're in non-atmosphere, a rocket, any sort of propulsion would send you spinning violently like a gyroscope at 360 degrees. There's nothing to push against to send you to the moon or to send you to wherever they claim to be going. You'd just be at the whim of gravity or at the whim of space wind or whatever forces are pushing you. You wouldn't be able to do the things that they say they're doing out there in space. What they're really doing is using camera tricks like the movie Gravity. They use green screens and wires. They use zero-G planes doing parabolic maneuvers to fake that they're floating out in outer space. And they use dark pools with LCD screens projecting a fake ball Earth to do outside shots when they're on their spacewalks, as they call it. So just using these simple camera tricks, we've been convinced that they're able to send up rockets into this fake outer space area where you just float around. So satellites are out there in this floaty place they claim exists hundreds of miles up. We can only get about 20, 30 miles up. And any further than that, we just come falling back to the Earth. They claim that they have their special technology that only they can afford, the trillions of dollars of tax money they fleece from us. So because of that, they're able to get up higher than us to this floaty spot where all these satellites are. Now, in the floaty spot in the thermosphere, it's supposedly 2,000 degrees Celsius. And these satellites are made of gold, aluminum, and other metals, which all have melting points much lower than this. They get around this saying there's no air there in or whatever in the atmosphere, so the temperature doesn't translate onto the metals or something. But they've got an excuse for everything, as I've said in other interviews. They literally have a lame excuse for everything you can think of, and I know them all, and I can present them to you. But there's also a common sense flat Earth explanation for everything as well. People have been exposed to their ball Earth excuses for a long time, so they're quick to, but they haven't heard of the common sense flat Earth explanations, so they're quick to ridicule those because all they've ever heard is this.
When we think of maps, Eric, we think of the USGS, the United States Geological Survey. Why do they use the flat Earth map?
Right, yeah. The USGS actually uses the azimuthal equidistant map, which is a flat Earth map projection. And the UN, the United Nations, their logo is a flat Earth, strangely divided into 33 Masonic sections. So why is the UN, the USGS, why are these official organizations using a flat Earth map as their official map? Why does NASA admit to using geocentric calculations for their rocket launches? Why is the official 1892 map, Gleason's, a flat Earth map? You can check it out. People have found it in the Boston Library and other libraries. There's plenty of flat Earth maps. Mercator, the guy that gave us our projection map that we use in schools today, his 1569 map is a flat Earth map, showing the North Pole being a magnetic mountain, something that is never shown nowadays in our maps. They just say the North Pole is a bunch of ice in the middle of an Arctic sea. In his map, it shows that there's these whole island continents around the North Pole that don't exist on modern maps, and there's a magnetic mountain right at the middle. That doesn't exist on any map nowadays. So there's some interesting secrets in historic cartography if you look back at ancient maps. In fact, pretty much every map before the 1500s is a flat Earth map. This ball globe deception, this idea that we're on a ball, it's only been around for the past 500 years or so. Before that, pretty much every map in existence was a flat Earth map.
Why do we use the Mercator projection when it's proven that it's incorrect, it's false, and the correct one is the Peters projection map?
Right. Yeah, so this is a much better projection, the Gall-Peters, which has the continents, the sizing of them relative to one another and each other, more precise. I still wouldn't say that's the right map than the Mercator, and we've known this for a long time, so why do they use that? And, well, I would say the answer is that they're deceiving us regardless. Even the Gall-Peters map is a deception, and I wonder about the azimuthal equidistant. I wonder about even the old flat Earth maps. Since we've been lied to so much, I'm not sure that we have a completely accurate map anywhere, though I recommend looking at the Gleason's 1892 map and the Hammond's Air Age map. There are a few flat Earth maps that are very detailed. I'd like to see some modern cartographers take a look at this and see how much more detail we can get. But the flat Earth maps absolutely describe the Earth we're living on much better than any of these ball models.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, when you're trying to traverse around Antarctica like James Clark Ross, Captain Cook, and other early explorers tried to do, it took them 3 or 4 years, and they traversed 50 to 70,000 miles. Where on the ball model, it should only be about 12,000 miles around Antarctica. It shouldn't take you that long to go around it. But like I said, it's the circumferential barrier around the entire Earth is Antarctica. So it takes years to get around it, and it's much bigger than at the equator. The equator would be 25,000 miles in circumference, they say in the ball model. Yet when you're trying to go around Antarctica, it's twice that size as it would be on a flat plane, not on a ball. And these early explorers, they often found they were going on ball projections as well, and they found themselves out of their reckoning more and more every day the further south they went. So since they're on a ball projection where they're assuming that lines of latitude are getting smaller and smaller as they go southward, in fact, they're getting larger and larger. I'm sorry, it's the space between lines of longitude is what I'm talking about. As you can imagine, it would come back in on itself on a ball, whereas it would just expand outwards from a flat plane. So the further south you get, you're going to get more and more out of your reckoning. Ships have actually crashed based on this, and it's like a big mystery. Why in the southern hemisphere is it so difficult to navigate? And they just chalk it up to harsh winds and sea conditions, and so that they must get off their reckoning based on the harsh seas. But it's really this, that they're following false projections, and so they're getting outside of their reckoning all the time.
Now, the UN map, why don't they include Antarctica?
Yeah, the UN flag and logo, it's definitely a flat Earth projection, but you'll notice there is no Antarctica anywhere. But there is a laurel wreath that goes around it. So symbolically, that wreath very well could be the Antarctic going around it. They've just left that off. I think it would probably be a bit too obvious. Actually, they have changed the UN map a couple times. The first UN logo was an exact copy of the azimuthal equidistant map. But they've changed it a little bit to make it look a little less obvious. So I think that's probably what they did with Antarctica as well, is they just turned that into the laurel wreath around it so that the insiders know. Just like they divided it into 33 sections. It looks like there's a bullseye over the Earth, over the flat Earth, and it's divided right up into the 33 sections. As you probably know, it's 33 degrees in Freemasonry, and so that's a sacred number in numerology, and they hold that number dear. So that's a little wink, wink, nudge, nudge to fellow Freemasons, but the general populace wouldn't know.
Now, speaking of maps, why is most of the continent of Antarctica unmapped, in your opinion?
All right, so on the ball model, it's just this little continent on the bottom, yet in reality, it's all around us. So there's much more of it than we know. And how much there is to Antarctica, I don't know, and any independent person doesn't know, because we only have gotten as far as that, and nobody independently has had the privilege of going further southwards to see how far south you can actually go. They have a fake South Pole station set up that you can take little photo ops and go where they've got a flag and a little ball earth on top of a red and white barbershop pole set up. And they say, that's the geographic South Pole, like I talked about earlier. But you can't take a compass there and walk in a circle and prove that you're at the South Pole. And they'll tell you, well, yeah, this isn't the actual South Pole. The actual South Pole is a little somewhere else, indeterminable, that they don't know because it's constantly moving. So really what it is they've just set up a little place at an arbitrary point along the Antarctic ice and called it the South Pole. In reality, we don't know how far it goes. Perhaps the people who've set up the Antarctic Treaty, the government, the Freemasons, the one who've perpetuated this deception from the beginning, I'm sure they know how far it goes. Whether it ends in a dome and some sort of barrier, as ancient cultures have talked about, or if there's an edge, or if it's an infinite plane that just goes on forever, or if there's some other termination of the ice, is still a mystery at this point. But we know that Antarctic is all around us, and it's certainly much bigger than they show in their ball projections. So there's certainly more land there in Antarctica than we know. So that's another reason that they can't necessarily show us in the map. Even the flat Earth projections, they'll show the Antarctic circumference. We know what that looks like. We know all the cliffs, all the little ins and outs, but we don't know how far you can go south. So all the projections inevitably just go to the ice, show all the little imperfections in and out, the inlets and outlets, and then trace a circle around that. Whether that circle is the dome or whether that circle is arbitrary and it actually extends infinitely is still unknown at this time. And like we said, they've got this Antarctic Treaty, and this is surely why. Because if any independent explorer decides, I'm going to go to Antarctica and just set their course southwards and start walking, well, they're going to find the answer to this mystery. And it's that easy. But it's not that easy if they've got a treaty enforced by military ships patrolling the place, putting people in jail who try it. So it's a gauntlet that some brave explorer needs to run with a Ustream account. Just go for it. They come up with an excuse for everything that is presented to them as a difficulty to their model. But when you just break down their excuses, time and time again, you start to see how they're just lying. They're just making stuff up so that to keep the model going. It doesn't make any sense. The more you actually look into it, you see that they're weaving a big myth. And when you look into the flat Earth experiments and examples, you see that this makes sense. This is obvious. You can do this for yourself. These experiments have been done over and over again. Like I said, I have 200 proofs the Earth's not a spinning ball. On my forum, we've got many more proofs than that. I challenge you to find any, NASA or any ball believer to find 200 proofs that the Earth is a ball or spinning. They can't even give you 10 good. I mean, they can't even give you one, to be honest. I can debunk every single one. But, I mean, they can't even come up with fake explanations the way flat earthers can come up with real, legitimate explanations. The more you look into it, the more you'll see this. At first, everyone scoffs at flat earth. What the heck is that? Yeah, because you've never heard this before. All you've ever heard is that flat earth is ridiculous and the spinning ball is obvious. So that's how you're going to react. But I challenge you. You just look into this some more. You're going to shift. It's going to become exactly the opposite. You're going to scoff at this stupid spinning ball model, the idea that you've ever believed that this happens, and you're going to see how obvious it is that the Earth is flat and motionless, just as it appears to you, just as it has appeared to everyone throughout all of history.
Something dawned on me that they had different pictures of the rotation, but what struck me as strange was that the clouds were exactly in the same position. And then recently, you probably saw it about 3-4 weeks ago, NASA came up with this new picture of the Earth having the moon going around it that looks so photoshopped to me. Did you see that?
Yes. They called it EPIC.
Epic.
I forgot the anagram or whatever. It's EPIC stands for the name of this satellite that they claim is 1 million miles away, and it just sent them these photographs or whatever. I don't know, is it a photograph or a video? It's such a bad video you can't even tell what it is.
Oh, supposedly a video, yes.
Right, but it's just like a flip book. It was just pictures of this little gray ball moving over a blue ball. And anyone that's not completely brainwashed can see this is an image. This is a CGI, computer-generated image. It's not a video. And neither are any of their videos. Like you said, you look at any of these videos that they have of the Earth spinning, none of the clouds move. None of the clouds morph. And you can see way too much of the ocean and the Earth. If you actually go up in a plane or a hot air balloon, you notice there's clouds everywhere at varying altitudes. And so the Earth should be white, really, if their images were legitimate. But yeah, as you're saying, they're actually all computer done. They're not even that good. You look at them next to each other from back in the 70s up to nowadays. They all look totally different, too. The shading of the water is different. The clouds is different. The image of the Earth has changed as CGI technology has changed. You can see it, the early 2000s, it looks like the Men in Black style. Nowadays, it looks like the Gravity Hollywood style. They update their ability as time goes on. But it never looks the same. In a recent one, I don't know if you saw, they put the word sex, S-E-X.
I did.
Clearly in a cloud formation.
Yes.
So they're just laughing at us now. They're putting things out there for us to see. Like you said, it's for the people with eyes to see. It's the wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So they're laughing at us.
And nobody questions, because that little quote unquote video of the Earth with the moon going around it, it's almost as if it's a bad crop of the moon placed there in an animated GIF, and you don't see the shadow of the moon as it passes in front of the sun.
It's terrible. And it gets millions of views, and every comment you see, people are like, amazing, thank you so much. Our tax dollars well at work. And Neil Tyson will say something like, yeah, we brought you this image, and it only costs every American like $7 per year. That's it. It's like, yeah, I'll take my $7 back, and stop lying to us. They've taken trillions of our dollars over the existence of NASA. It's like 30 billion just for the fake moon landings. And now they've got RASA and JAXA and all these other space organizations propping up all over the world. So they're fleecing their populations of tax money, billions and billions of dollars. And what are they doing with it? They're paying artists to make little CGI renderings and laughing at us and running away to the bank. So this is one of the biggest deceptions in history, and they're laughing their way to the bank as a result of it. Right? But we all know that the sky is up and the Earth is down. There really is an up and down in nature. They're trying to claim that everything's relative. We're on a ball, so there is no up, really. And that the sky is both up and down and side to side. It's everywhere. And, they say that there is no up and down, and that gravity just pulls things to the center. So someone in Australia, even though they're supposedly hanging upside down on a ball. Gravity sucks their feet in, and the sky above their heads, the reason it's slightly different than the sky above someone's head at the North Pole is because the sky is around them 360 degrees. But in fact, the sky is only above us. And the reason you see slightly different stars is because your perspective isn't infinite. You can't, if you're at the North Pole, Polaris is directly above you. You look straight up, it's right there. Now you go southwards from there, and you look behind you, and you'll notice Polaris is slowly going down on the horizon. Just like anything that goes away based on perspective, starts when it's right over you and tends towards the horizon until it gets beyond your view, and then it's disappeared. But that doesn't mean that it's now like in some other area of the 360-degree space. It's still above you in the sky. It's just gone beyond your perspective. Same with the sun. People say, but I see the sun set, and it looks like it's just going down under the horizon. How do you explain that? Again, it's perspective. The sun is not going down under the horizon. You can see when the sun is setting, oftentimes clouds high above the sun are being lit from above, and you can see shadows from above, yet the sun is below the cloud. Why is that? Because the sun's not below the cloud, of course. The sun is above the cloud, but it's retreated so far off into the distance that just like lamps on a street, they get smaller and smaller as they go away from you. They tend towards the horizon. They're not actually getting shorter. They're just seeming that way. And the sun is not actually setting and going below the horizon. It just seems that way as it gets further and further away from you.
Right. Yeah, Neil deGrasse Tyson was just on the Anthony Cumia show saying how at the Burj Khalifa Tower in Dubai, if you go to the top of it, the sun sets 2 minutes later than at the bottom, and that proves that the Earth is a ball. So what they're saying is that the Earth is a ball, and the curved shape of the horizon is what's the sun is disappearing beyond that. And if you go up in the tower, you'll see the sun again for 2 more minutes and watch it set again. And that's proof that it's setting beyond a ball. Yet, if you go up there and you take video 360 degrees around you, you'll see the horizon's perfectly flat all the way around you, perfectly at eye level, and it rose with you at eye level right from the base of that tower to the top of that tower, as is only possible on a flat plane. A ball, no matter how big the ball is, the horizon would stay where it is, and you'd have to tilt your head looking down more and more as you rose to see it. And of course, it would also curve. The reason that you see the sunset slightly later from a higher position is simply perspective on flat surfaces. If you rise even higher than that, then you'll see even farther as well. They don't seem to mention that. When you go higher in altitude, you're able to see further along a flat plane, and that's all that's happening as you go higher. So the sun, when it's setting, is actually maintaining its altitude at about 3,000 miles above us, and it circles over and around the flat Earth. And so from your position, due to perspective, as it goes away from you, just like a row of street lamps, as they're going away from you, the one closest to you seems very high overhead, and then slowly dips down more and more to the horizon, or just like a long, narrow hallway where the floor rises up, the ceiling comes down, and the 2 walls come into a point right in the middle. That pyramid shape, that eye at the top of the pyramid, another reason for that symbol is that's the way that our eyes actually see. Our eye sees in a pyramid-type shape like that, and the sun setting down on the horizon like that is simply an element of perspective. And when it goes beyond the horizon, it's not setting beyond the curvature of a ball Earth. It's simply gone beyond the vanishing point of perspective from your point of view, which is what the horizon line is. It is not the curvature of the Earth, as you've been taught. You can think about it. If the limit of your perspective was the curvature of the Earth, and you saw, say, a ship disappearing over it, then you look to the left, the same amount of distance, and you look to the right, the same amount of distance. Well, there's no curvature there, but that's twice the distance as the ship in front of you. that you think has disappeared beyond the curvature. And then to double check this, you can take out a pair of binoculars and you'll see that that ship that disappeared beyond the horizon over the curvature of the Earth magically comes right back totally into view, hull and all. And that's because it's simply gone beyond your perspective, which you can bring back into view with technology or by gaining altitude, like by going up in a tower. So this is all just an element of perspective, and tricky Masonic magicians are trying to get you to think it's based on the curvature of the spinning ball Earth when it's nothing but perspective. Take a look at these images coming from NASA and RASA and JAXA and all these different space agencies, the Chinese, the Japanese. Some of these are even worse than NASA, and you'll notice how clearly fake they are, how obviously Photoshop CGI they are. And when you compare them to one another, you'll notice these impossibilities, like the water always being different shades of blue every single picture. The size of continents changing from picture to picture, one time North America filling up the entire picture, one time it being just a tiny little speck in the upper part. You'll have on the animations, you'll notice that the clouds almost never move. You'll see a spinning ball Earth with the exact same cloud formations for 24 hours. Take a look at these anomalies, not only on the pictures of the Earth, but on the pictures of the Moon, because we've never been to the Moon either. NASA's Moonlanding hoax is all about going far enough away, supposedly, that they could turn around and take a picture of this spinning ball Earth they've been talking about for 450 years and say, hey, we were right, look at that. And the raging debate that had been going on since the late 1800s from Samuel Rowbotham and the other flat earthers then was almost in an instant put to rest by this so-called photographic evidence in an age where most people believed we went to the moon because they heard it on the radio. Nowadays, we have computers, we have Photoshop, we can see these things. You can see anomalies in the original NASA images just by putting them into Photoshop. For instance, you will see many of the images of Earth supposedly taken from the moon have artifacts, rectangular artifacts around the Earth directly embedded in the image, proving that the image of the Earth was actually cut and pasted in a computer program and put there that way. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a rectangular splotch of blackness around the Earth in space. There's also images where you can see the shadow of a ceiling above the rover as it's taking off from the moon, because it's simply being lifted by a crane overhead in a studio. Many of these things, these have all been exposed. This is common knowledge amongst us educated conspiracy folk that you like to ridicule and laugh at and call stupid flat earthers. But this is just a fact. You can't land on the moon. There's nothing to land on. It's just a light. And I can prove it to you right now. Go out on any afternoon and look at the moon. You'll see the blue of the sky through the part of the moon that isn't illuminated, proving that it couldn't be a solid sphere to land something on, but that it's just a light and you can see through it. People have photographed stars through the moon. You can see the blue of the sky through the moon during any waxing and waning cycle. You can see for yourself that it's a light, and it's casting its own light, unlike they tell us that it's a reflector of the sun's light. You can prove that its light is different from the sun's light. It's cold. If you take a thermometer and put it in the shade and another thermometer and put it in the direct moonlight, it's actually colder in direct moonlight, and the thermometer will go up in the shade, the exact opposite of the sun. It's like the yin-yang. If you picture the yin-yang symbolism in Chinese astrology, it's the sun and the moon circling around and over the flat earth. The yin and yang is everywhere in nature, in fact. The male, female, inhale, exhale, good, evil, up, down. But they do away with these things. They say there is no up and down, that everything's just relative. They say there is no good and evil, that they're all about moral relativity. They say there is no sun and moon yin-yang aspect because the sun is actually really, really big and really, really far away, and the moon is really small but a bit closer. And from our faulty perspective, it just looks like they're exactly the same size in the sky. Once again, Masonic magicians lying to you so that you don't believe your own eyes, which tell you that the sun and the moon are equal, divine, balanced opposites in the sky, revolving over and around us, keeping time like a celestial clock and calendar. But instead, they just feed you these lies about spinning billiard balls, doing wobbling and tilting on their axis, doing all this nonsense to try and explain away all the bullshit that they're telling you. The actual physical evidence, they're always short on that stuff. When you ask NASA, hey, how about the telemetry data from the supposed rocket and shuttle that took you to the moon and back? Could we see the reels and reels of that? Oh, we lost it. Oh, that's too bad. How about the original moon landing footage? Could you show us the original tape so we can verify their authenticity, this $30 billion project you did 45 years ago and came back with really terrible black and white ghostly images of a recording that you forced the news agencies to do? Could we see the original that nobody has ever seen? Ooh, sorry, we lost that too. Oh, you lost that too. Oh, hey, we killed Osama bin Laden. Really? Could we see the body of that guy you've been traipsing through Iraq and Afghanistan, causing all these wars? Could we see the body? We dumped it in the ocean. Sorry. They're really short on physical evidence, because when you're creating a bullshit story, you can't have physical evidence, can you? You can only have so-called evidence. You can only have the fabrications of evidence. That's why when you look at evolution theory, the so-called monkey and humanoid transitionary forms, or dinosaurs, and the supposed physical evidence that they give you for that, actual dinosaur bones? Well, the actual dinosaur bones, we keep those under a lock and key that no one in the public can ever or has ever seen. And instead we give you plaster of Paris molds that we assure you come from the original bones that you've never seen, but they are there. And as for Lucy and these Neanderthal man and all these other supposed transitional species, yeah, sorry about that, but it's just human bones mixed with ape bones, and we've been doing this for 150 years now, being exposed regularly, but we just keep doing it. And the great lie, if you just keep telling the same lie over and over again, even if all the physical evidence has been exposed as nonsense, they'll start to believe it just by the sheer weight of the propaganda. So as a truth seeker, I recommend people ask these questions and look for the physical evidence. Look for, aliens. Oh yeah, show me physical evidence of an alien. Still nothing. How many type in aliens? We must have millions and millions and millions of hits and people contacting aliens and all this stuff. Physical evidence, please? None. Okay. These kind of things are where you have to look. And that's where the flat earth is. It has reams of physical evidence. My latest book is 200 Proofs the Earth is Not a Spinning Ball. I came up with 200. Because William Carpenter came up with 100 back in the 1800s, and I wanted to double it. Somebody else could double mine. When you're dealing with the truth, you can come up with as many proofs and experiments and evidence as you want, and that's what you're going to find for the flat, motionless Earth. And again, this is why they don't want you using this method of discernment. They want to keep you in la-la land based on testimonials and hearsay. They don't want you doing actual science, looking for actual physical proof of things, because that's when you really start to get to the bottom of these hoaxes. Even longtime paleontology students have come out saying that they're trying to get a glimpse of these, but because they were critical of the establishment, they aren't allowed to see them either. Basically, it seems like unless you're indoctrinated enough, or unless you've been brought into the secret societies and told the truth anyway, that you're not going to get into the higher echelons of this kind of stuff anyway. So, people like Neil deGrasse Tyson, he knows the Earth is flat and motionless. He's a Freemason, and he's doing a job, an acting job, where he propagates this deception onto you guys. And the high-level dinosaur people, it's the same thing. They know that dinosaurs don't exist. But the bones, supposedly the real bones, are kept locked away. but they just give you plaster of Paris. If there were real bones, you could put them behind, solid, bulletproof glass, whatever you want, but show us the real thing. No, they can't do that. So it's all Hollywood stuff. This Martian, they're going to send someone to Mars. They found water on Mars. There's a pyramid on Mars. There's a face on Mars. Yeah, a Photoshop face. Yeah, Photoshop pyramids. Yeah, Richard Hoagland goes on CNN, and you believe it because it's some supposed NASA insider exposing it, right? Yeah. That's the way to get the propaganda to really sink in. You give these whistleblowers to come out, and you make them into heroes that are exposing this information that only they have on the inside, right? And that's what us conspiracy theorists love. We love a good whistleblower, and we think that is actual truth and proof. But this is what I'm saying. This is the kind of evidence that we need to move away from. That's hearsay. When you have some supposed expert coming out and giving you information that only he has and that only he can confirm, that's called hearsay. It doesn't matter how much of an expert he is. We need physical, tangible evidence, stuff that you can put your hands on and prove. And again, that's why these kind of pundits, these kind of whistleblower, insider, conspiracy guru types don't want the flat earth truth coming out, because then you can prove for yourself that their claims are nonsense. And the cat's out of the bag. The flat earth is the cat getting out of the bag, and they really don't want this one to get out. That's why the subject is so full of shills and trolls and nonsense, like the Flat Earth Society and other fake flat earthers that come in and give fake arguments and give fake flat earth facts to make the idea of flat earth seem impalatable to people and to seem ridiculous, so they don't want to discuss it and research it, and to think, like you said, that it's irrelevant. What does it matter what the shape of the earth is anyway? As you've been listening to us talking for the past hour, you can see how it's very relevant, and how there's a huge myth of what and who we all are interwoven into this. And when that is brought down, this whole myth is brought down, and there's a whole new worldview that comes clearly into view, which shows that you were purposefully, intelligently created to be this way, as was the whole earth. And it's obvious. You've been blinded from that obvious truth to think some nonsense that everything could come from nothing for no reason and create everything that you see before you. You've closed your eyes to reality and opened your ears to Freemasons. That's it. That's all that's happened.
Mm-hmm. They tell us that we're just, they say there's 1 septillion planets that they've discovered. So there's billions and billions, trillions and trillions of planets, and Earth is not special. And they just found Earth 2.0. Did you find that? A couple of months ago,
yes.
They came up with some new planet they found, which mysteriously looks like CGI once again, and it's got water, and it looks like Earth, and it could sustain human life. And so this is what they want you to think. They want you to think you're not special. They want you to think you're an accident. That's what this Big Bang non-God cosmology is all about.
Well, isn't a Big Bang the equivalent of you and I throwing a chalk on a board and expecting that the word God would appear?
Right. Yeah, it's the equivalent of having a huge explosion take place, and when the dust settles, everything you see on Earth is here. It's the equivalent of seeing a laptop computer in the middle of the forest and assuming that it just came there by accident for no reason, and no intelligence, no consciousness was involved in its creation. That's part of this big deception. That's what they want you to think. They've actually got a huge segment of the population believing that the entire Earth, the entire physical universe, comes from nothing, and consciousness, intelligence, somehow evolved out of the random accident. So, obviously, we're living in an intelligently designed place here. Obviously, consciousness had to pre-exist the physical universe for the beautiful, complex, diverse physical universe to even come into existence at all.
Thought precedes matter.
Absolutely. And that's what all religious and spiritual systems throughout history have said this, but the new science religion says the opposite. The new science religion says matter comes first and thought comes out of that somehow. Stupid matter evolves thought and intelligence out of it. But you can see the beauty of nature, the complexity of your internal, emotional, and intellectual life. There's no way that just happened as a random explosion. And
the golden mean, the Fibonacci sequence everywhere.
Absolutely. It's not only is design intelligent, it's so intelligent that our human mind can't possibly comprehend it. So instead of admitting that and being a lowly human created by a highly intelligent creator, the new science religion lets you think that you're the pinnacle of evolution, you're a god, you're the best thing that ever walked, the universe, and that God doesn't need to exist whatsoever. So that's the metaphysical angle that this whole conspiracy is attacking us at. It's making us think, like you said, we're not special. And when somebody presents you with the idea that, hey, you're actually the center point of the universe, everything in the cosmos revolves around you, the Earth and us humans particularly, the most intelligent of the intelligent designers' designs, we are special.
But why do they continue to say we have so many other problems? Why are you focusing on this distraction?
Well, if they haven't looked into it at all, I can see how they would think that way. And I kind of thought that way years ago as well. That, well, it's just the shape of the Earth. What does that matter? Does it really matter whether it's this shape or that shape? So if you think of it on that level, then sure, it seems insignificant, and it seems like it could be a waste of time, even if it was true. But if you think of it a little deeper than that, and you think of it as being the most fundamental lie, is where we are, what we're doing here, the Earth beneath our feet, the lights in the sky above us, what they actually are. And if we've been lied about all of these, as well as the Big Bang and evolution and the way that we supposedly got here and the purpose we may or may not have in this nihilistic cosmology that they've presented with us, it becomes a big deal. And when you look at the potential for a truth like this, a truth that has been suppressed for 500 years now, the flat Earth truth, if that gets out and it is shown that every government, every university, every pundit, every television station is lying knowingly and censoring this truth, what happens when it actually gets out? The kind of restructuring of society and the system that truthers are looking for, that people know we need, is what can happen and what will happen and what must happen if this truth gets out. Because this is huge. It is the truth. I guarantee anyone who's never heard of this before, look into the flat Earth. The Earth is flat, just like it appears on the horizon. The Earth is motionless, just as you feel motionless. Everything in the sky revolves around us, just as it appears if you look up and use your own eyes, your own senses. Everything that your senses tell you is what's happening. But you've been fed a false system. You've been shown CGI images with a ball Earth with a horizon that curves. You've been shown more CGI images with a ball Earth that spins. You've been shown planets that spin like billiard balls around each other in many different directions at many different speeds simultaneously. You've been shown all these things in CGI format. You've had Freemasons lie to you and tell you they've seen it for themselves, but you've never seen it for yourself. You've just been lied to and shown pictures, and you believe those. It's not science. Science, in fact, shows that the Earth is flat and motionless, and there are hundreds upon hundreds of proofs and experiments that have been repeated throughout history for hundreds of years, but you haven't been taught them in school, because they don't want you to be taught that in school. They show you a spinning globe on your first day and tell you that gravity keeps water and buildings and people stuck to the bottom of that thing, and they repeat it until you believe it, your parents believe it, your grandparents believe it. 500 years ago, people were believing it. They even started trying to get people to believe it thousands of years ago, but it didn't pass until about Copernicus in 1500s when this really started to take shape. So the reason that some of the pseudo-truthers, so to speak, or just mainstream sheeple don't want this to get out and say that it's a distraction, it's because they don't know how far-reaching the implications of a truth this deep actually surfacing would be. It's like holding a balloon underwater. When you let go, that thing's just going to rush to the surface. The water's going to go flying, and that's what we need. It's exactly what we need. So that's what I'm working towards doing.